Namaste everyone. Welcome back children. Children, as we have picked up our topic air, water, weather and seasons, and in part 1 we have talked about air, in part 2 we have talked about water, and today in part 3 we will talk about weather and seasons. And here we will talk about the two movements of the earth, that is rotation and revolution, and we will understand how rotation and revolution are responsible for the formation of day and night and seasons respectively. So let us take up our topic air, water, weather and seasons part 3. So children, as we have already talked about air and water in our previous videos, and today in this video we'll talk about weather and seasons. And let us first understand what is weather. It is the condition of the atmosphere of a place at a particular time, or you can also say that day-to-day condition of the atmosphere of a place is called weather. It is not same everywhere and at every time. It may be hot and sunny at one place, whereas it may be cloudy or snowing at other part of the world. So children, it is never same. It varies from place to place. On one place it may be sunny, on another place it may be windy, or at other place it may be cloudy, and maybe at other place it is entirely different, it is raining. So it keeps on varying from place to place. It is never same at all places. Also, it may be sunny in the morning, but it may rain in the afternoon. That means it may vary within a day also. The sun causes the changes in weather. And let us see how the sun affects the weather. Heat of the sun changes water from one form to another and also affects the movement of the air. These changes in water and air bring about changes in weather. How sun affects the water? We know that there is a continuous movement of water from land to the sky, and evaporation and condensation are two processes which are continuously taking place in nature, which eventually lead to the formation of water cycle. And if we talk about air, we know that large water bodies, they heat up and they cool down more slowly than the land, and this leads to the formation of sea breeze and land breeze. And children, we know that wind speed also affects the weather of a place. So now let us understand the two movements shown by our planet Earth. The Earth has two movements, rotation around its axis and revolution around the sun. So if we talk about rotation, the movement of the Earth on its own axis is called rotation. And if we talk about revolution, so it is the movement of the Earth around the sun in fixed orbit. So children, now let us take up the first movement of the earth, that is rotation. Earth rotates on its tilted axis. Earth completes one rotation around its axis in 24 hours or one day. So children, as you can see here, this is the axis of the earth and the earth is rotating on its own axis. So the movement of the earth on its own axis is called rotation, and it completes one rotation in 24 hours. So now let us understand how this movement rotation is responsible for the formation of day and night. Day and night are caused by the rotation of the earth. Only half of the earth faces the sun while other half is away from it. The half which faces the sun receives the light and experiences daytime, whereas the other half experiences night. As you can see here, the part of the earth that faces the sun receives the sunlight and has day, whereas the other part which does not receive the sunlight has night. As the earth is rotating, all parts of the earth get to face the sun and experience day, and the other half get to experience the night. So because of its rotation on its own axis, at one point of time, one part of the earth will receive the light of the sun and will have day, whereas the other part will have night. As the Earth completes one rotation around its axis in 24 hours, each day-night cycle is of 24 hours. So that means as the Earth takes one day to complete one rotation, so our day-night cycle is of 24 hours. Children, before we take up the second movement of the Earth, that is revolution, let us first understand what is a season. Weather conditions experienced for few weeks to few months. That means if the weather remains the same for few weeks to few months, we call it season. There are four main seasons: summer when it is very hot, autumn when trees shed their leaves, winter when it is very cold, and the spring when we see new leaves and flowers bloom around us. So, children, how are seasons formed? To understand this, first we have to understand the revolution movement of the Earth. Earth revolves around the Sun in a fixed orbit. It takes 365 days and 6 hours, that is 1 year, to complete one revolution around the Sun. So as you can see here, the sun is in the center and the earth is revolving in a fixed orbit around the sun, and it completes its one revolution in 365 days and 6 hours. And children, now let us try to understand how revolution leads to the formation of seasons. Seasons are caused by revolution of Earth and tilt of its axis. Earth's axis is tilted at 23.5 degrees, because of which the sun's rays fall directly in northern and southern hemisphere at different time periods. So, children, we have two important things to remember here. The first is the Earth's axis is not straight, but it is tilted at 23.5 degree. And another is that equator divides the Earth into northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. The hemisphere which faces the sun has longer and warmer days, that is summer, and the hemisphere which is away from the sun has cooler and shorter days, that is winter. So children, as you can see here in this diagram, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, or we can say that the rays of the sun will fall on the northern hemisphere more directly as compared to the southern hemisphere. Therefore, the northern hemisphere will experience summer and the southern hemisphere will experience winter. Similarly, while revolving on its orbit around the sun, a stage comes when the southern hemisphere tilts towards the sun and northern hemisphere is away from the sun. Now, in this case, the southern hemisphere will receive more direct rays of the sun as compared to the northern hemisphere. Therefore, southern hemisphere will experience summer and northern hemisphere will experience winter season. Children, we know that Earth takes 1 year, or we can say 12 months to complete one revolution. As the Earth takes 12 months to complete its one revolution, after every 6 months, the rays fall directly on northern and southern hemisphere alternatively. So summer season shifts from one hemisphere to another every 6 months, and so does the winter season. So children, let us try to understand it through this diagram. In the month of June, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. That means the rays of the sun will fall more directly on the northern hemisphere as compared to the southern hemisphere. Therefore, the northern hemisphere will experience the summer season. So children, while revolving around the sun after 6 months in the month of December, the southern hemisphere will be tilted towards the sun, and now the southern hemisphere will receive more direct rays of the sun as compared to the northern hemisphere. Therefore, southern hemisphere will experience summer season and northern hemisphere will experience the winter season. So children, now let us move on to the keywords. So first is weather. It is the condition of the atmosphere of a place at a particular time. Rotation. Spinning of Earth on its axis is called rotation. Revolution. Movement of Earth around the Sun in a fixed orbit is called revolution. Season. Weather conditions experienced for few weeks to few months are called seasons. So, with this, let us move on to the recapitulation section. State whether the following statements are true or false. Day and night are caused by revolution of the earth. That is false because it is caused by the rotation of the earth. Spinning of the earth on its axis is called as rotation. That is true. Seasons are caused by revolution of the earth and tilt of its axis. That is again true. Weather vary from place to place and time to time. That is also true. So with this, let us move on to the think and answer section. How are days and nights formed? How are seasons formed? What is weather? Explain the two movements shown by the earth with the help of a diagram. So children, I hope after going through this video you are able to answer these questions, but still if you have doubts, so you may refer to the slide numbers as given here. So children, that was all about weather and seasons. And with this we come to the end of today's session, and in next video we'll meet again with new topic. Until then, take care of yourselves.